or not take it from me.
Depression affects so many people in this world along with anxiety. I am one of those people. Every day is a new journey of going through the required movements. Hello, how are you? Fine. How's your day? Good. Of course, there are things that help. My cat, my friends, my family. But I have one thing since the first days of my life that keeps me going, keeps my heart pumping, and keeps the feeling in my life.
Trying to walk a mile to get all the way to my other school for theater class.
It happens all of a sudden, like an explosion of numbness and extreme panic. You can't breathe, you can't think. It is like the world is going to end right there and then. Your chest being clawed out by panic, anxiety, and depression. That's a panic attack. Theater has always been an antidote to the poisonous mental illnesses I suffer from every day. Once upon a time, I did not have theater. And this is when everything blew up and shattered. Sleeping through each day because it was not worth it to feel all of the pain, all of the time. I barely ate. Showers were burning hot or cold, numbing my only conscious hours. So when I say I love acting, and when I say it is my life, I mean it. Because it's the one thing that gives me life. It's the one thing that holds my life together. It is my life.
The wind whips my hair around my face, and I can hear the crash of the waves as I walk down the path that leads to the sand. Birds can be heard above our heads, and clouds blanket the sun in the typical Oregon coast fashion. My feet hit the cold sand, and I'm transported to my own personal paradise. With my mom by my side and our dog up ahead, everything seems to be exactly the way it should. The wind picks up, and with it comes the sand, dancing above the ground, twisting and spinning around my feet. Then it is swept away before most people even notice. I smile. Then a laugh escapes. I feel the energy of the waves and the strength from the wind. I am fearless. I am happy. I tilt my face to the sky and stretch my arms as if I was reaching for the glass box that always seems to enclose me, holding me hostage from the world. And I break it. Then I spin, whipping around, a flurry of hair with a flash of a smile. I feel more alive than ever. The clouds are a blur, and I close my eyes as I stop turning and just breathe. I wish I could hold on to that feeling forever. The happiness pushing through the cracks in my skin from all the times I was broken. I tried to piece myself back together, but a few pieces were lost along the way. Some are just chips, easily covered by a smile or a joke between friends. Others are larger, almost impossible to hide. So I laugh loudly and I talk quickly. I create a diversion to distract you from what is truly hidden behind the mask I put on every day. I pretend to be okay so that people will believe that I am. I open my eyes after what seems like minutes. I look at my mom, and I hope that my eyes tell her all of the things that I can't quite say. How much I love her and admire her. How I hope I don't disappoint her. But mostly, how all I want is for her to be truly happy. Then we begin to walk towards the water, the waves drawing us in, whispering the secrets that lay in its depths. When we reach the waves, we are reminded how powerful they are. They swell and crash and they use up all of their power just to go as far as they can. We run on the sand where the waves lick our feet, and we climb up the dunes only to fall down the other side. We laugh until our sides ache, and we yell until our throats burn. Hours pass, and they melt together the way time does when you're having fun. I learned something important that day when we were watching the waves. Just as a new wave will swell after the last one crashes, a new day will come after the last one ends. Some waves are small, and some are so tall they could swallow you whole. Some days are easy, and some are so difficult that you feel as though you might not come out the other side. But inevitably, the sun sets and rises, and a new day begins. We are given 365 fresh starts every year, yet we try to harbor our energy for the future. We have the ability to make a difference, but if we let our fear hold us back, we may never be able to go as far as we can. Just as the waves hold nothing back when they crash, we should be unapologetic, and we should be powerful.
The silent pause of my mom staring at me with tear-filled eyes made it even harder. It was like my ears were trying to block out the negative parts of what I was hearing, and it went straight through one ear and out of the other. This couldn't be happening. Cancer. She said the word and I instantly froze, going into a sort of shock where you're just emotionless, not knowing how to react. It was the year of 2010. My mom had uterine cancer that was almost too late to treat. The doctor said she caught it just in time and that it would be treatable with surgery and chemotherapy. As the surgery date approached, my grandma and my aunt flew in to keep my siblings and me distracted so that we wouldn't think about it so much. It didn't really help. If anything, it made it worse. All I could think about was the pain that my mom was going to be in when she returned home. When my mom got home, her new bedroom became the living room. She slept on the couch so that we could keep an eye on her. She looked so miserable and helpless. I cried. I cried so much that the tears wouldn't even come out anymore. I hated seeing my mom this way. I just wished that there was something I could have done to make her pain go away. I wanted her to get better. I wanted my family to be happy again. Eventually, my mom healed and was put into remission. She was cancer-free up until 2012 when she got cancer again. This time, it was in her ear, but the doctors kept misdiagnosing it. They just assumed she had chronic headaches. They were wrong. My mom had a cancer called Langerhans cell histiocytosis, which are abnormal cells that migrate from the skin to the lymph nodes. This sort of cancer was uncommon for adults, so it didn't really make much sense. The doctors had to perform a craniotomy on my mom to see exactly what it was they were dealing with. It turned out that my mom had a total of 15 lesions on the left side of her skull. They took 10 of them off. Once the majority was gone, they had to put a mesh flap in her head because the cancer had ate away at her skull. After this, she was given chemotherapy for a year and a half to get rid of the rest of the cancer. I remember telling my mom that I would shave my head with her so she didn't feel so embarrassed to go out in public. She panicked, telling me no. In detail, I remember seeing the long scar that ran across the left side of her head. I remember the pain she felt when the cold winter air made the metal stitches send a piercing cold shock into her skin. She had to wear scarves to ease some of the pain. I remember that pain, but I also remember how pretty she looked with them. At the end of the year, my mom was put into remission. That had to have been the best Christmas present I've ever gotten. After everything was over, we moved to Oregon. Everything was good up until my mom got cancer. Again. I was tired of our lives being put on replay. This time it was on her rib. It was more simple than the other times, but it was just as scary. She did chemo and radiation for it, and eventually it went away. Thankful was the word that came to mind. I was thankful that after all of the times my mom has gotten cancer, she's beat it every single time. I'm so grateful that I still have my mom by my side and that she was strong enough to hold on. She's been in remission for 8 months and counting, and to this day she's been cancer-free, and I couldn't be happier.
I believe that every family is driven by something, and I feel that my family is driven by our hard work and ohana. In Hawaii, ohana means family, but to us it means much more than just a word. My great-grandpa always made sure to show how important both family and hard work is. On December 7, 1941, my great-grandpa and his buddies were heading out to enjoy their day off when they were confronted by Navy officials who were rounding up civilians in their truck to go to work at the Navy base. Unaware of the attack on Pearl Harbor, they refused to get in. In response, the officer got out of his truck, cocked his gun, and told them to get in the truck. Pearl Harbor is being attacked. It was then that they were hauled off to the Navy ammunition depot located on the west side of Oahu. This was the start of his 33-year career with the U.S. Navy. With only an 8th grade education and the willingness to work hard, he was able to work his way up from a mail delivery boy to an ammunition inspector. When I was younger, my grandma would tell me stories of how my great-grandparents didn't have very much money when she was growing up, and how he would always find ways to provide for his 9 children. Because they didn't have very much money, my grandpa relied on fishing to bring home food for his family. When he got off of work, he would come home, gather his net and 9 kids, and take them to the ocean, where he would throw net to gather fish for dinner. He would catch as many as 200 eole ole in one throw. He worked very hard to provide for his family. During holidays, because toys were too expensive to buy, he would go out and gather materials to make for all of his kids so they would have something special. He was known as a cook, a baker, carpenter, tailor, musician, and an artist, and he was good at all of them. Around the island, he was known for his hard work, love for his wife and his 9 children, and for his country. Ohana was his biggest priority. It was a way of life. He made sure that all of his kids knew the importance of family, and I believe that he has impacted the way of life for many generations to come.
Mimi Tree, he called me. He said it was because I never stopped giving. It was hard knowing he was suffering and that we couldn't be there with him. Everyone said he had 9 lives because he kept giving us these life or death scares. Weighing over 200 pounds, he wasn't exactly the healthiest person. I don't have many memories of him being well, but he always acted like nothing was bothering him. My Uncle Noel could soothe everything with just a few sentences. He was loved by many. He was the type of person you could meet and instantly want to know more about. They would always ask him how he was, and he would always reply with, "You got an hour?" A simple phrase that made everyone laugh. He was one of the brightest people in my little bubble. There was this one time, I walked into his little apartment in the facility he was staying at, and he was sitting there, gasping for air, as if he had been having trouble breathing for a while. I looked at my mother with these scared eyes. It was something I hadn't seen before. She ran past me and to him in a hurry, and asked him if he was okay. His hands were trembling, and his whole body was shaking. Spasms, they called them. He would have them continuously for 1 to 2 minutes. They were like short death periods to my 13-year-old eyes. When he started getting really sick, we would drive to Washington almost every other weekend to be with him. The 7-hour drive became a lifestyle, and the views became landmarks. The small towns we passed were nothing but a chance to get out and stretch. Maybe grab a bite to eat. He was never in a hurry to get places. He would always take his time with everything. He taught me to enjoy the little things. He would look at me with his scruffy beard and big eyes and say, "What's the point of moving fast if we're all going to get there eventually?" It made me realize the little things and not to take them for granted. When I was 13, I thought it was the worst thing ever that I might like boys and girls. I couldn't imagine anyone accepting it. We went up to see him for this one long weekend, and we were sitting there in silence for a bit. He asked me what was wrong or what was on my mind. I told him that I had the slightest feeling for this girl. He looked at me and said, "Dimitri, you can like whoever you want. The rest doesn't matter. It's history." He was the first one I had told this to. It was hard to face it at my age, and I had no idea how to cope with it. At last, the time had come where my uncle started to get really sick. He was put in the hospital and put on medication. He was very frail, kind of like a big teddy bear. There weren't many things he could do. My mom was up there most of September, along with my family that could be there. They all took turns watching over him, sitting with him, and talking occasionally. The time finally came where my mom told me I should go see him with her, because it might be the last time. I didn't want to. My uncle was this guy that had been there since the beginning. He had acted as a second dad. He had cared for me and had always supported me. I was scared to see him so fragile and suffering because I knew. An instant smile spread across his face as he murmured, "Mimi-tree," in excitement. There were so many things I wanted to say, but I knew I couldn't, because he wouldn't understand them fully. The last few things we talked about and that he said to me were that he was very proud of me and that he loved me. My Uncle Noel passed away 3 days later, surrounded by family and hospice care. Everybody cried tears of sadness and happiness, knowing he passed away peacefully and happily. The next few weeks were hard on everyone, but we all made it through. He was a great guy that impacted my life drastically. I wish everyone would have known him, his kind-hearted soul, because he brought the happiness everyone needed in their lives. Rest easy, Uncle Noel.
I grew up in what most people would call a broken home. That's not exactly how I viewed it, though. Majority of my life, I felt the need for a father. That's exactly what every child in every movie had, not to mention the constant question of who or where my father is. This was a daily reminder of how different my life was compared to others. It's hard to say, but like every child put on this earth of ours, I struggled with multiple things. There was a lot of scramble with my emotions, and half the time I wasn't even sure they were my emotions anymore. I struggled with my opinion, and most of all, I struggled with others' opinion. I have never been able to see myself as good enough. As I look back now, I have to say, being a teenager and trying to make friends with groups that are already sealed tighter than Durabond is a major challenge. A challenge which I thought would be the only one I would have to do. That wasn't the case, because when I stepped back on Oregon soil with my sister Amber to visit my older sister Kayla, I wasn't aware that my life in Florida was about to become a blur. Everything happens for a reason. This sentence is the fuel to my tank of life. To understand, you have to know a bit of how my mind was sculpted from the beginning. When I was a baby, my mother drove my two sisters and I across the United States to Florida for a better life. We spent a few years living with family, friends, shelters, and transition housing. My mother did everything in her power to keep us safe, clean, and healthy. A few years went by, and my oldest sister moved back to Oregon without us. Then, in the summer of 2011, my sister Amber and I wanted to go visit her in Oregon. We got up quite early in the morning to catch a plane to Portland, Oregon. Unfortunately, that night, while we were gone, my stepfather rudely and abruptly decided to kick my mother out. Next thing I knew, I was starting my second year of middle school in a new state and city. Middle school barely scratched my fragile and emotionally unstable brain. It was high school where I struggled most to belong without being a leftover piece to others' already built puzzles. Depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder are the layers of my skin that I lotion up with a thin layer of happiness each day. Sadly, it's caused me to have low points when I don't know if going on is really an option. But I've refused to give in, because although my mind can make a bad cocktail 43% of the time, it means majority wins, and I will take the other 57% whenever I can.
Alicia was the hardest working, most devoted, strong-willed woman I have ever known. She was my mom. Throughout the course of her 55 years, she endured many tragedies. The first just before her 4th birthday, when her dad passed away. Although there was eventually a stepfather in the picture, he was in the military and never around. My grandmother raised both of her daughters, Alicia and Elizabeth, alone, while working as a CNA, and she would have my mom help with her other job, babysitting. As a young teenager, my mom went to school and worked full-time to help provide for her family. Fast forward 30 years, she was married to my father, a raging alcoholic who didn't give a rat's ass about anyone but himself. He gave her nothing but heartache, debt, and, well, me. In her words, I was the only good thing that came from him. At that time in her life, she was working graveyard in the cafeteria at the local hospital. That was her means to provide for me, especially after my father went to prison. She worked 60-plus hours a week, every week. Every night, no matter how tired she was, she would pack ice chests home that she filled with ice from the hospital machines and leftover food from the night before. That was our dinner. She had to carry those ice chests hundreds of feet and up a set of broken stairs just to get them inside of the house. Those were the very stairs that she broke her tailbone on just a few years later. The strain, tireless work, and injuries took a toll on her poor body. Her body was broken. 3 crushed discs in her spine, 1 emergency surgery to repair the 4th, a complete disc replacement in her neck, and a list of medical problems a mile long. Despite her hardships, she never failed to continue giving her all for me, even when she had nothing left to give. I was always worth it to her. She was so dependable, it was almost annoying. I miss that now. I miss her. There was nothing my mother couldn't do. She was the true jack of all trades. Cars, medical advice, animals, gardening, survival, weapons, drugs, God. You name it, she knew about it. Well, except for algebra. She used to be a bouncer, swim lesson instructor, beautician, the body prep at a nursing home, a poet, and finally, she was a preacher. With all of the different professions she pursued, she had many skills to admire. She was fearless. And it showed in November 2017 when she embarked on her final adventure, a one-way ticket to Accra, Ghana. She went alone and left everything behind for the chance to jump at the opportunity to achieve happiness. She traveled across the world to meet and marry someone. They were set to marry the first week of March 2018. However, she passed away February 1st from a bad case of pneumonia, just 4 days after my Aunt Elizabeth died. That was the last time I got to talk to my mom. The last time I spoke to her, I told her that her baby sister had died. Hearing the sadness in her voice broke my already broken heart even more. That put me in the position to tell my grandmother that she had lost both of her daughters in less than 1 week. Seeing my grandmother's face filled with sadness is a sight I will never forget. 28 days later, after the death of my mother, my grandmother joined her girls in God's arms. In 32 days, my entire blood family died. They wanted to see me graduate this year, and I am doing it. I am doing it all for them. I love them, and I will continue to make them proud. I come from a long line of women who fought against the odds, and I plan to carry on the tradition.
Hello, honey. What are you doing? Are you at school? Love you.
The room is full of darkness. The world around me is twisted, full of people that want nothing to do with me. In this hardened shell, I am hollow. Raised from a bed of stone, thrown in a world that wants nothing to do with me. Every time I face a monster that guards my demons, I feel the sharpness of their blades that pierces my soul and cuts so deep that it amazes me that I even get back up. With only a few moments from complete darkness that we all call death, I rise and throw myself at the monster with all my strength. I cut it down, and as it lies there, it starts to disappear in the back of my mind. But I know it will be back. They always come back. I walk up the stairs to where my deepest fears lie. It's only I and it being the thing that causes all my pain and fear in this world. I see it, but before I even have time to react, it grabs and holds me there. I start to feel the darkness creep up my body. I feel the walls crumble under the pressure, and then blackness. I feel this pain every time that I play Dark Souls 3 one of the hardest games ever made. In the game, you are an unkindled ash, one of the many that have tried to prolong the age of fire by burning for eternity. Now you need to kill those that don't want the age of fire to go on. People who have already lit the flame are called the Lords of Cinder, and they have lit the flame before and won't do it again. The reason why you're summoned from death is because a crippled prince and his less crippled brother don't want to burn for eternity. Seems reasonable, but no. The game messes with you in lots of ways, and all around is a painful thing. Lots of people that have gotten so mad that TVs, video game controllers, and other stuff have been broken. But I play on, for a storyline that I won't get the first time I play the game. Only lore, a type of backstory, and quick fingers can help me now. The swamp is where I stay, for now, because one of the bosses, the Crystal Sage, who just shoots spells and has a knife, is a pleb. Makes copies of himself and shoots magic arrows that kill you in one hit, for no other reason than you wasted all your stamina dodging the crystal spike balls that float towards you and explode. His hat is as big as dangerous, but pleb spells in his hat aren't the thing that give him his power. He studied under the teachings of Big Hat Logan, one of the great mages that was a royal member of the Venham Dragon School. The Crystal Sage shoots crystals and stabs you. It's painful to see yourself die every time you cross his path, but little by little, your soul dies too. There still is nice things in the world, though, like going back to a level that was really hard, but you leveled up a bit and can destroy everyone, so you wreck them like they wrecked you when all you wanted to do was walk through. But now it doesn't matter, because nothing matters when you play Dark Souls. So you stay there for about 30 minutes, just wrecking everyone, so you can get back to where you're supposed to be and die. Turn off the game and cry in the fetal position for about an hour, hoping your parents don't hear you and ask what's wrong. You can't just tell them that you got wrecked by the Crystal Sage, because he's a pleb boss, which means that you're a pleb. And your parents don't want their child to be a pleb. Nobody wants a pleb for a child, but you have to get over it. You need to move on. You need to let go of the past, and know that if you already suck, you can only get better. Dark Souls 3, in a weird and twisted way, may teach us about overcoming hardships and learning to move on. No matter how long you've been at that problem, you can always try and defeat it, forever, until you get it. It teaches you this on many levels. If you want to get better, then it starts with bettering yourself, changing things about yourself and things about other stuff, and improve in certain ways that will eventually help you overcome your problems.
Lost, broken, discouraged, and alone. These were the four constant things I felt. I was a baby bird learning to fly for the first time, but when I was nudged out of the nest, I was afraid to spread my wings. I fell faster and faster until I hit the cold, damp ground of the forest floor. With broken wings, I lay there, with no motivation to try to get back up. I learned to crawl through life. With a broken and bruised body, I struggled to find food. I grew up with broken wings that were even more damaged by all the bad things to come. Whenever I built myself up, the beasts in the forest would beat me back down until I felt nearly dead, until I wanted to die. These beasts showed up as physical injuries, bullies, depression, anxiety, and regrettable actions I took against myself. Birds can't swim, so I just threw myself in frigid black water, gulping down the fluid into my lungs until I was whole out and conscious. I woke up alone like I had been before. I wandered through the forest until I came across another bird on the forest floor. This bird was not broken like I was. She seemed fine on the outside. She took me along and gave me a taste of what it was like to fly. She carried me up and up, higher and higher. I felt as if I was on the top of the world. This flight only lasted a year. We had gone as high as we could go, and there was no way left to go but down. She was done with me and just dropped me. Let go of her grasp, and her sharp talons released me. I plummeted down to the earth and slammed into the cliffside of the mountain of abandonment. I tumbled down gracelessly until I lay motionless for months in the mud of my mind. Now I felt 6 constant things: lost, broken, discouraged, alone, paranoid, and unworthy. I finally got up and found myself in a different forest, a smaller forest. Beasts lurked on the outside but could not enter. The same beasts that threatened to break me down to nearly nothing. I found myself amongst other creatures with similar paths. I began slowly and cautiously at first, walking through the paths, listening to the other creatures' stories. I began to feel like I could relate to them, and soon began to feel a sense of safety. This new forest was an oasis in the midst of hell. I spent a year or so working on teaching myself to fly. Each day I would wake up, pull myself together, and try to get my feet off the ground. The beasts still stalked me and made me uneasy. I never saw them outside the forest, but I could still notice them in other ways. The smell of dirty metal reminded me of long sleeves and regret. Certain songs reminded me of the emptiness in my chest and the pain in the pit of my stomach. I used these things as motivation to escape the beast's gaze. As I began to get better and better at flying, I was able to reach farther and farther away from them. A few months later, I had finally done it. I had taught myself to fly. I began to rise and see what I could really do in life. Things had started to fit together like a self-solving puzzle. It happened fast too, until my future and myself were set for success. Now, I am here today. I'm on track to graduate high school a whole year early. I met a girl that sees my flaws as even more reasons to love me and help me grow more as a person. I was able to get a job and start earning money for a vehicle. I attended the CTE National Signing Day at LBCC and was accepted into their culinary arts program. And I finally look forward to the future. Owning a food truck, starting a family, and enjoying every day. Things that I would have never looked forward to or even thought possible till now. It has taken a lot of pain and mental rerouting, but I have transformed. I am no longer that lost baby bird. I'm a young hawk, and I'm not only flying now, I am soaring, healed by myself and the positive people I surround myself with. My broken wings are mended.
Last year, 2 weeks before Christmas, I cut my hair. I know it sounds weird to talk about your hair being cut, but there's a story behind it, don't worry. The day I decided to cut my hair was the day I started a new life for myself. With the short pixie cut and shaved side, I could rebuild myself from the ashes that my long hair restricted me from. When I had long hair, it was always tangled. It made me look tired. I felt like I was a widowed mother with 3 kids and having to budget my food stamps every month. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I just personally don't want to feel as though my life has been sucked out by many human beings. When my hair was long, I felt old, like I had never heard of a shower and walked around in baggy loose clothes because they were comfortable. I felt self-conscious, unmotivated, unworthy of being seen by public eyes. 3 days after I had entered a local youth shelter, I cut my hair. At first, I wasn't sure what I was getting into. I could hear the voices of my parents and family echoing in the background. Don't do it. You don't have the right face shape for it. You look ugly. What defines ugly? What does ugly specifically mean? Is it something that will hurt someone? Or something someone uses to describe the physical appearance of a person? What right did people have to tell me how to live my life, how to dress, and how to do something as simple as style my hair? I knew that if I did cut my hair, I would be a different person. I could be rid of my old self, the self-conscious person who lived in a shell of a woman. I could finally be myself, be who I wanted to be. I felt like I deserved that after everything in my life had happened. The bullying, the phase of self-harm, the phase of being homeless. I wanted to leave all that behind me. Nothing was going to stop me from doing this. I had made up my mind as soon as I stepped into the hair salon. I decided to go from having hair that was long enough to reach the end of my back to being as short as my earlobe. It was something I had always wanted to do to my hair, but was never allowed to. I remember the hairstylist telling me that this was a bold move, that my hair was so long, and telling me stories of how other girls went from super long hair to really cool pixie cuts with shaved designs and colors. I was so excited, nervous, but the adrenaline rush ran through me. I was ready to have a new beginning.
I don't eat dinner with my family. It's not because I don't like them, or that I don't want to eat with them. It's because I can't eat with them. It's because I have misophonia. An artist known as Toby Allen has created a series of art depicting various mental illnesses: anxiety, bipolar, OCD, misophonia. Allen describes misophonia as a monster, seemingly harmless, but it wants to cause annoyance or feelings of disgust and anger. With its large, dome-like ears, it picks up on certain noises like slurping, crunching, tapping, or even breathing, and reflects them into the ears of its victims. These intense, amplified sounds can cause the receiver to react irrationally and cause fight or flight symptoms such as sweating, muscle tension, and an increased heartbeat. Translated into the hatred of sound, misophonia is a lesser-known disorder. It seems harmless, but it drastically affects the lives of those who have it. Maybe the sound of people eating causes the sufferer distress, like with me. Maybe it's the sound of someone blowing their nose or tapping their fingers, or even the sound of someone snoring or breathing. Even visual stimuli can cause the sufferer distress. Things like someone bouncing their leg, licking their lips, or yawning bother me. It's hard for people who don't have this disorder to understand and accept. Not everyone's family can accept it, they just don't understand it. Oftentimes, online within a misophonia community, you'll see cries for help as young people are stuck in situations with their families they can't escape. Within these communities, though, sufferers are always sharing tips and tricks to help out others. Things like the best kinds of earplugs to use, or buying a certain brand of earbuds that block out the noise, and even detailing how they can cut the wires off if they can't be caught wearing earbuds. I've found my own tricks along the way. I love to eat out with my friends and family, so I put my earbuds in and play white noise on a low volume so I can still engage in conversation. Many people around my school have noticed that I wear headphones during class. They are noise canceling, and I wear them to block out the noises that cause me distress. Before I had them, I'd sit there with my hands over my ears, unable to get any work done for long stretches of time. I'm constantly wearing my earbuds, playing my music. They're pretty much a permanent attachment to my being. Even in a crowded movie theater, I'll have one earbud in, playing mild music or white noise. Misophonia is different for every sufferer. It's a very personal issue, for it varies between each person. Sufferers will react differently to different noises, and intensity of reaction can vary. It can cause anger or panic. Some feel discomfort, but ultimately can ignore it, while others may feel nauseated, trapped, helpless, and like they have lost all control. Misophonia can cause shifts in personality. Often, a sufferer will grow more withdrawn and grow more irritable. They may develop anxiety, or anxiety may worsen. and they become uneasy around situations that remind them of their misophonia. If I hear rustling, like that of a chip bag, I'll grow anxious and find the source of the noise. If it's not a food wrapper, then my panic will subside. But if it is a food wrapper, then I'll try to leave or cover my ears. The sight of people eating or drinking also disgusts me now. This disorder can cause panic, as well as anger and aggression, since it engages the fight or flight mode. In most, they try to flee, but in others, it can cause an eliminate the source of the pain mentality. It can cause real physical pain. It is less common, and people rarely act on their aggressive feelings. The feeling of pain can also lead to self-harming tendencies. A year or so ago, I went upstairs to say hi to my family. They were eating dinner, and I started to get panicked, and it felt painful. I fled back downstairs and spent the next 20 minutes banging my head to make the pain stop. Fortunately, I've learned to cope with it better since then. A lot of people think it's a fake disorder, and a lot of people feel helpless and trapped because of the accusations. I want to help people learn and understand this disorder. It greatly impacts the lives of all who suffer, and if people keep their minds open, then it will help many sufferers feel validated and allow them to find peace and help.
He grabbed the bag from his mother's room. Seeing her so obsessed with this drug piqued his curiosity and led him on a journey to better understand the very thing that had taken his mother away from him. The bag was filled with shards of white rock that didn't look like they would really be able to cut anything other than the lives of the people who felt the need for them. Next, he grabbed her pipe. What used to be completely clear and almost like an artwork was now filled with what we called fog. He left to his own room so he could get started before his mother and everyone else came home. He destroyed the shards and ground them into a fine powder. Loading his mother's pipe, he told himself he was ready, but never in his life had he been so unprepared for coming events. The first hit made him feel like he was floating. Then he took a second, next a third. He loved the emptiness and lost the feeling so much that he told himself it was good. The powder was almost like sugar, but it definitely wasn't as sweet. 14 years old, with his whole life ahead of him, he nearly threw it all away. His mother tried her best for him and his siblings, but we all have weaknesses that are able to drag us down into the abyss. A year had gone by and still nobody knew what was going on. Either he hid it well, or no one cared. He began to change. Whenever he didn't have it, he was angry. Walls would be destroyed and people would be hurt by his words. At this time, it had been almost a year since he was able to look his little sister in the eyes without feeling overwhelming guilt. Her innocence when he would look at her was matched only by his inability to provide. He raised her when his mother was going through depression fits and started having seizures regularly. He essentially left her the way his mother left the both of them. He convinced himself it was for the better. To make matters worse, he decided to try out the next best thing, but this time it was black. His mother even fell farther into addiction, and they no longer had money to pay the rent and power bills every month. Her memory was so bad, she never remembered whether she spent the money. So he would sell his product on corners or in parking lots and come home to sneak the money into her purse. Overdose after overdose, he never realized what he was doing to his family or himself. At least 8 times he almost died, while at least 2 he did. Eventually he was put in rehab. I wouldn't say the rehab itself was what fixed it. It was more the time he had while he was unable to do drugs. He was determined to turn his life around after a few months of being clean. He's only missed 1 day of school since late 2017. Thursday, March 16th, 2017 was the day that destroyed his life but also gave him the power to fix it. He has a job now and doesn't rely on drug money to help him buy the things he needs. He left rehab with the ability to provide for himself, without the paranoia and the fear of police and shadows chasing him down the block for the 3rd or 4th time in that week. Stepping out the front door after his last day of outpatient treatment, he reminded himself how stupid it would be to go back. This kid has seen things most people wouldn't even survive. His life has been a sad book, each turn of the page revealing facts worse than the last. However, all books will eventually be revised. He now has the ability to be the editor, protagonist, and author of his own story before it is finally published. His goal? To be remembered. Not to be remembered for his actions when he was on drugs, but for what he does after. His story is one that can help many others, and that's what he plans to use it for.
My skin is so thin you can see right through it, straight down to the vessels of blood and the sadness creeping through my veins like disease, down to childhood memories playing in the fields, barefoot, because that's when my skin was thick. Let's say that at the time you were born you were a blank canvas. The average lifespan of a woman living in America is 2,470 days. Each of these days will be spent decorating and adding to your canvas. Every scar, tattoo, scrape on the knee, and every experience you will ever have is printed on your canvas. My canvas was so soft and so bright, I dread to say it won't be that way forever. The moment I was born, my canvas was spattered with black ink when the doctor said, "She has the biggest head I've ever seen on a newborn." My mother brought me home into her natural disaster of a teenage lifestyle, and no matter how my parents tried to mix the colors that would define me, the paint would just turn to mud on the canvas. I've always been the first one to wake up to see the sunrise. My great-grandma Evelyn knew that. I would see her in the morning and enjoy a bowl of cereal and cartoons with my favorite person in the world. In my first memory, I was 3 years old. One morning, as my tiny legs waddled to the kitchen, I heard a thump to the ground and found Grandma Evelyn laying on the kitchen floor. Stiff as a board, muscles tensing, trying to move, but can't break free from their own restraints. On her back, her eyes were white, boring through the kitchen lights, straight into the sky like she was looking for heaven, flickering shut and clinging to life, and her skin... Oh my god, her skin was so white, so transparent, it was blue like her life was leaking from her pores. I am a spacey person, but if there's anything I'll never forget, it's the look in a dead woman's eyes. So what you'd normally expect to hear next is that it affects me every day of my life, how I think about it every night before I go to sleep, and how she had such a large impact on my being. It was like a black hole in my canvas. But I'm not going to tell you that. It was more like a crack in a canvas panel. No, I'll never be the same as a person whose first experience was not one of death, but cracks in a panel can become rivers of paint in mossy groves, and holes popped in stretched canvases can become metallic, mixed media projects over pastel skies. My mother was an addict, and my father has no idea what he's doing. Although my mom wanted to be the best that she could for me, she tripped and stumbled over needles and straws. Maybe I've been homeless, abused, and hungry and waiting for my next meal. All of those things are like paint spilled or when your cat walks over a freshly painted piece of art. I spent my teenage years scratching, tearing, chewing, ripping the skin from my bones, and I have the scars to prove it, but I am okay, because my skin is thin, but it will always heal. I fall, but I will always get up, and I always know that I've been through so much from the beginning, so I'll always be okay in the end. People are like 2,470-day masterpieces, and in art, there is no mistakes.
Mom, day after day, year after year, you're still my best friend. You are the cooling water to my hot temper. You're my smile on the cloudy days. You're the warm hug that I get after a long day. You always know how to make me smile, and I know how to make you laugh. You're everything I could ever ask for. We're a team, you and I. No matter how many people get added to our family, you'll always be the closest to my heart. Remember those days when it was just me and you? Me and you in bed? Me and you smiling and laughing? When I was little, I would run and jump into your arms, holding you tight, never wanting to let go. As I get older, these same hugs still linger in my mind. So warm, so safe. I hug you now and still never want to let go. Those days you were sad, I so desperately wanted you to remember what a smile tasted like. Those days it was just me and you were so serene. Happy as I am with all these new faces, I miss when it was just the two of us. At age 4, Ashley was painted into my picture. At age 12, Daddy was drawn in, not his usual erasable sketch, but with Sharpie hit or stay. At age 16, Noah stayed for a night and moved in for the year. At age 16, Isaac moved in with Kitty and Theodore, and that made our house complete. These people, these family members, I love, but my heart and yours are connected. No matter how our picture changes and grows, you're still the closest to my heart. Although those days of just you and I decline as I rapidly gain independence and individuality, I cherish the days I spend with you. One day I was holding your hand and you kissed my ouchies. Suddenly I was out with friends. Now I'm staying out late, now I can drive, and someday soon I'll be off to college. You held my heart inside your belly for 7 months. You nourished me and raised my little mind to become who I am today. Even when you annoy me to no end, like when you call me 45 times in one day or bang on my wall, I know it's because you care and want to interact with me. I'm lucky to have a mom like you. So supportive and sweet, funny and kind, cheerful and giving. Everyone raves about how great you are. I hope you understand that. No matter where I am or what's going on, you'll always be my best friend. And we will always have a bond that nobody can break. Your DNA constructed and created me. Your motherly instincts helped and never hurt me. Your blood is my blood, and your heartbeat made mine. Even through the toughest of times, we are there for each other. Even when I mess up, even when you feel blue, we love each other, and that will never change. You wipe my tears with the hands that I know as well as my own, and after almost 17 years of my life, if I know one thing for sure, it's that you're the best person I've ever met, and I wouldn't want anybody else. I love you, Mommy.
My life was normal. Ordinary. Regular. It was the same thing every day. Get up, brush my teeth, take a shower, get dressed, go to school, come home from school, sleep, and do it all again. I always hoped that one day I would be ripped away from my boring life and go on a grand adventure that would mold me into the person I was meant to be. But my adventure was not the one I had hoped for. There was no warning, no way to stop it, no way to make it better. There was nothing I could do. I was completely helpless. 1 second, everything was normal. The next, I was waking up in a hospital room. Everything was white, the blankets, the walls. I had an IV in one arm and a blood pressure cuff on the other. The room emanated with the smell of rubbing alcohol and bleach. HLH, said the doctors. You have HLH. They tried to explain to me hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. I was on so many medications at the time. The only thing I could understand was I was dying. There are moments I wish I could go back in time and appreciate what I had. Before the chemo, before the steroids, before the torture that the doctors called saving my life. Everything was taken from me. My freedom, my identity, my mind. I was gone. My life belonged to doctor's appointments and sharp needles waiting to extract a little bit more of my will with every puncture, only to replace it with the reoccurring thought of of renouncing my existence. I thought I was alone. But it wasn't just me suffering. Everyone who had ever loved and cared about me was going through something that I wasn't able to understand from my point of view. Imagine what it must be like to watch someone you love deteriorate right before your eyes. The worst thing I could have possibly done was give up. So I fought, and I battled. I withstood and I triumphed over and over, day after day. It was the most agonizing thing I've ever had to do. And I wouldn't have changed a thing, because when the battle was won and the flames started to die down, I could see the stars, and they shine brighter than ever before. No, I didn't fight a treacherous dragon or sail across impenetrable seas, which would probably make for a more exciting adventure. But I am a better and stronger person because of my hardships and my family. I can't wait to see what the rest of my life has in store. I'm ready for anything.